everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about the components that I think are most important when you're putting together a regenerative agriculture farming system. Those components are soil, soil biology, plants, bugs, livestock, and decaying organic material. First up, let's talk about soil and soil biology. Soil is a combination of the mineral components of soil, so the clay, the sand, the silt that make up the base of the soil, and all of the trillions upon trillions of microorganisms and the organic matter that all mix together to make what we call soil. If you don't have all of that biology happening, you don't have soil, you only have dirt. You can think of that rich mix of all of those things in the soil like a larger ecosystem, like a jungle or a savanna or something like that, except for each one of those ecosystems is present in just 1 teaspoonful of soil. So it's kind of mind-boggling to think of it on that scale. And the larger animals that live in the soil that we can actually see, like earthworms, they form the whales or the elephants in that soil ecosystem. All of that biology, the wonderfulness in that soil ecosystem, it drives nutrient cycling, the web of life in the soil that makes all life on Earth possible. Plants are pretty incredible. They are the foundation for all life on Earth to continue and keep moving. They're the basis of the food chain. They make the oxygen that we breathe, and they draw carbon and nitrogen, in the case of legumes, from the atmosphere, from thin air, and bring it down to Earth to drive systems to keep everyone and everything running. I manage each one of my garden beds as a little mini ecosystem of plants growing and decomposing back into the soil. The way I do that is I just let weeds grow. I then pull them out and lay them on the soil surface. I don't even worry about getting the roots out because I actually want them to keep growing, because every growing plant is drawing carbon from the atmosphere and ultimately putting that carbon into the soil when it decomposes back down. I also, whenever I'm harvesting a crop, I only take away the piece that we're going to eat. So in the case of carrots, I take the carrot off and I leave the carrot top in the garden to decompose and put those nutrients back into the soil. Living plants form relationships with the soil biology. It's an intricate process, and they really improve the health of the soil. From that perspective, letting plants remain in place for as long as possible, potentially years if you can, really gives them the potential to improve soil health much more than annual plants do. Here I am in what I call my hayfield, which is just a section of my pasture, which used to be what I called my lawn, that I've let grow. I haven't mown it, and I've let it get to a much more mature stage than you would normally keep a lawn or even a pasture at. The reason I do this is to allow the system to really charge up in its health. As these clovers and grasses get older, they put their roots further down into the soil, improving the soil structure and bringing nutrients, minerals, all sorts of things from deeper in the soil layers up to the surface, so they can be used for the chickens when they eat the grass and for the other plants once the hayfield is finally mowed down and let go back into the soil. Having a system like this that you let grow to a much older level of maturity than you usually would allows for lots of insect habitat for the good insects that help you out with managing the less good insects in your system. And it allows for the clovers and the grasses to set seed, which allows for the whole stand of grass and legumes here to remain really healthy over time. Those are some of the great benefits you get when you start to perennialize your system. Keeping plants in place for year after year after year really helps to provide those ecosystem benefits. The habitat for all your insects to keep healthy populations all year round really helps you with all of your other management systems, and you don't have to start from square one. Every year, you've already got a system charged up and ready to help you out. Plants need bugs and bugs need plants. They communicate together in very intricate ways that we're only beginning to understand, but it's pretty incredible. Even bugs that we think of as pests play a really valuable role in the ecosystem of a garden or any ecosystem anywhere. We just call them pests in a gardening context because they tend to cause us problems eating the things that we want to eat for ourselves. Even slugs and snails, the bane of gardeners' existence, play a really vital and valuable role in a garden ecosystem. Their main job is to decompose, to eat up the dying plants, weak plants, and materials that have fallen to the surface and need to decompose. They cause problems for gardeners because they like to eat seedlings. But as your plants get healthier and healthier, as you really put effort into making all of these systems work well together, slugs become less of a problem for you. In my system here, slugs have given me quite a bit of trouble for quite a number of years, but I'm starting to find that they're becoming less and less of a problem for me as my plants get healthier year after year. And my slug populations have not decreased. There are a lot of slugs here, pretty much everywhere, but we've reached a point that we can generally coexist. Here in my gardening system, I have put a lot of thought into supporting my bug, my insect populations over time in my gardens. So I do things like I plant pollinator edges, borders to all of my gardens, which are just plants that bees and the other pollinators love to come and visit, and that helps the pollination for my main crops that are after those borders. And it also continues to provide habitat for the good bugs, the bugs that help me out keeping any pest bug populations down. So I find that really useful. I do things like leaving edges of gardens, of corners of the house, places that the lawnmower can't reach very easily. I just let them grow. And again, that's providing habitat for those insects to live. And as they flower, it provides a draw card for more pollinators to come into the yard. I like to provide great homes for those beneficial insects to help me out. They do a lot of work for me, so I don't have to work as hard, and they provide food for my chickens. Let's talk about why livestock are so important in regenerative agriculture systems. Livestock animals can move nutrients from one part of a system to another by eating in one area and then pooping in another. They also provide a pretty magical benefit in that they can eat foods that humans can't digest, and they can turn that food into wonderful, nutritious, and delicious food that people can eat. In my small space here, the livestock I have are my chicken flock because I can't fit anything bigger than that. You can see how I use my flock to drive my regenerative agriculture system by checking out the video I made all about that. Livestock provide valuable nutrient cycling by eating plants and then pooping out something that is really, really rich in things that plants really need, being nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, as well as lots of trace elements that plants need too. The more traditional livestock species, the ruminants, so cows, sheep, goats, they co-evolved with grasslands, which are really powerful ecosystems for storing carbon in the soil and really improving soil health over time because they're a perennial system. The roots go deep and they're just magical for really charging up a system. To try and recreate that here in my small system, I maintain my lawn as a pasture, which does have to live in relationship with my lawnmower and the valiant efforts of the chickens to try and eat as much as they can. I need my chicken flock to achieve the outcomes that I am achieving here, which is constantly improving fertility in my gardens and really, really driving the whole ecosystem health with their magical ability to take nutrients from one place and put them in other places. It's really important for my ecosystem health. Livestock are absolutely essential to having healthy, regenerative farming systems. Now, I know that livestock, especially cows, cattle, have been getting a really bad rap for the last couple of decades from certain ideological groups. And I understand why they think the way that they think, but their entire perspective is being informed out of a system that is just broken. It is divorced from the way that humans used to be in relationship with farming and livestock meshed together in a very symbiotic way. It's become really corporate. Cows are being crammed into feedlots and fed corn, and it's all just completely ridiculous. And on that note, I do agree entirely with the perspective that livestock can cause quite a bit of damage. I live in New Zealand and I'm from New Zealand, and in this country there are no farm subsidies. So our farmers, they have it hard, but they've really had to drill down into a system that actually makes economic sense without a subsidy system. And that means that all of our cattle, all of our sheep are produced on a grass-based system because it makes absolutely no sense to feed an animal something it's not evolved to eat that is much, much more expensive than feeding it as much as possible from grass, something that people can't eat. Another factor in that for this country is most of those beef and lamb producing farms are on land that is not suitable for any other sort of agricultural purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, I am absolutely not saying that subsidies are a bad thing. What I am saying is when you have people in cities who have absolutely no idea how natural systems work, how farming works, how hard it is, and how far ahead you have to plan for your operation, you can end up with some bad decisions driving bad policy that just generally starts breaking the system for everyone who is forced to have to operate in it. What we need to start fixing our food systems is farmers making those policies decisions because they know what they are talking about. Cows eat grass and people eat cows. the beginning of everything in my system is right here in my composting chicken run. It is the largest area of decomposing organic matter that is going to break down and be able to go back out to support life in the rest of the system. There is, of course, plenty of other decomposition happening in my whole system. The weeds and the crop residues are breaking down directly on the soil of the garden. The grass clippings are melting back into the pasture, and leaves are falling off the trees and being drawn into the soil to nourish everything moving forward. But the biggest amount of decomposing that happens here happens in this chicken run. The compost that ultimately comes out of here goes right back out into the system, onto the gardens, into areas that I'm trying to encourage to be more fertile and productive. And every seedling that I produce here is grown, it's given its life from this compost that has come from other life that has, over time, broken down to continue that cycle. In an ecological farming system, there is no such thing as waste. Every single thing has value. Every single thing contributes to the ongoing movement of life through the whole system. Everything that is alive gives itself in death to the continuation of life on this planet. Everything begins and ends right here.